It was a pregnancy that wasn't planned. It was a surprise to both of us. Her reaction when she found out that she was pregnant was, "Theo, I need to get an abortion right away." And mine was, I just said to her, I said, "Let's take a little time. Let's think about this. Let's go visit a few different resources, and we'll take it from there." About a week or two after we found out she was pregnant, we ended up going to a crisis pregnancy center in Boston, Massachusetts to explore all of our options. After we went to that pregnancy center, the mother of my child still had her mind made up. She said, there's no way I can go through with this pregnancy, and I have to have an abortion. So the women at the pregnancy center set us up for an ultrasound in 2 or 3 weeks when she was about 5 weeks pregnant. So we went and we saw the ultrasound. All we could see at this time was a little pulse, which was the heartbeat of our child. And even though it was just the heartbeat, is all I could see, it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen to this day. When we went, the women said it's too early to see if this pregnancy is viable. Why don't you come back in another 2 or 3 weeks? Well, during those 2 or 3 weeks, I had a lot of people talk to my girlfriend at the time. And even my mom sat down with her and she said, "Whatever you need, I'll help you through school. I'll help you with finances. I'll help you watch the baby. Whatever you need, just please keep your child. Please keep my grandchild." Even after she heard that from my mom, she was still stuck in having an abortion. So about 2 or 3 weeks after that happened, we went back to the pregnancy center and we got an ultrasound, and she was about 8 weeks pregnant at the time. And it was so amazing how much difference, or how much that baby grew in 2 or 3 weeks. I went from just being able to see the amniotic sac and a little pulse to being able to see my child's arms, my child's legs, the head of my child, the spine of my child. And again, we got to see the heartbeat, and then the nurse turned the volume on the machine, and I was able to hear my child's heartbeat for the first time. And it was the most amazing sound I've ever heard in my life, still to this day. And I remember just when I heard that heartbeat, I just cried. I bawled. And the mother of my child looked over at me and she said, "Theo, what are you crying about? Worms have heartbeats too." And her saying that to me actually made me cry harder. And it made me feel so hopeless at the time that I had absolutely no rights to this child, and the mother of my child thinks that my precious baby is equal to a worm. So we still, after that day, I went back to her school and I spoke with her for a little bit, and I said, why don't you want this child? She said, "Well, what if the child has birth defects or something goes wrong with the child?" I said, "I was born with hydrocephalus, which is fluid in the brain, and my doctors told my mom that I was going to be deaf, dead, blind, or mentally retarded, and I'm none of the above today. All I have is I shake a little bit and I have a little trouble with memories, and that's all." And she looked at me and she said, "I don't want my child to end up like you and to have problems in school." So I said, okay. I left that day and I went home and I called everyone I could imaginable. New Hampshire Right to Life, lawyers. I asked, what are my rights as a father? And they all gave me the same answer: you don't have any rights until that child is born. So I went as far as even calling the abortion clinic where she was going to get the abortion that weekend. And I said, what are my rights as a father to my child? My child's going to be aborted. They said, first of all, you have no rights. Second of all, that child's a fetus. That child's not a baby. And they hung up on me. So I picked up the phone and I called back again and I said, what do you do with the babies after they're aborted? I want to bury my child. They said, you don't have any rights as a father still, and it's none of your business. And they said, if you call us one more time, we're going to call the authorities and have you arrested. So that door shut immediately. I then went to the mother of my child after I spoke to the abortion clinic, and I said, please tell me what they do. They said, don't worry, your baby's going to be donated to science. I said, what? She said, yes, your baby's going to be donated to science, and your baby will go to a better cause. I couldn't believe it, that they would take my child without my permission and sell my child like my child was a piece of meat on the market. So after I met with her that day when she had the ultrasound, she called me and she broke up with me. And this was on a Wednesday. On the following Friday, a night or a day before the abortion, I went to her one more time and I begged her and begged and pleaded. I said, please don't abort my child. I'll take full custody. I'll pay for everything. You won't have to do anything. Your hands will be clean. She said, no, I can't do it. At that moment, I knew that the only thing I could do was pray. So before I left, she asked me to leave, and before I left, I said, please let me do one more thing before I go. And she said, okay. So I dropped to my knees, and I rubbed her stomach and kissed her stomach. And I said, Daddy loves you, and I'll see you in heaven. And that was the most painful thing imaginable that I've ever done in my life. And the next day, around 2 p.m., she had that abortion. And right before she had that abortion, I saw a picture of my child. And then it just went blank. Following week, I went to my church, and we had a memorial service for my baby. And I had a few close friends, and I had my parents come. And that was the start of the healing process from the abortion. But I still was in pain. I had nightmares every night. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was suicidal. I tried to OD I don't know how many times. And next morning I'd just wake up more depressed. And I'd have more trouble sleeping the next night. It was just a vicious cycle. So it came to January. I got invited to a local Right to Life march. And that's actually where I met Chris Slatter. He was the keynote speaker. And he invited me to come down to New York City for the summer and work with him. So I said, okay. And I left on July 12, 2007, the exact day that my child was supposed to be born. I went down to New York City to help counsel men and women who went through a similar situation that I went through. And when I was down there, over those 4 or 5 months, I was able to counsel hundreds of men and women, and I was able to, through the grace of God, save hundreds of lives. So it was a beautiful experience, and I do encourage those of you who are college age to go down and try that for a few weeks. It's an amazing experience. It really is. So I then left New York, and I came back to New Hampshire, which is where I'm from, and I opened up a pregnancy center where I counseled men and women who were going through similar situations, and I worked with refugees, and I also had the opportunity to work with men in prison. Now I went in there, it wasn't even abortion related. I just wanted to help out the community. I found that the majority of the men in jail are post-abortive. And the way they deal with their anger is by violence, domestic violence, drugs, alcohol, things that put them in there in the first place. So it was a grace from God that He put me there at that jail to counsel those men who were post-abortive. It was really a great experience. I am also coordinating 40 Days for Life in Manchester, New Hampshire, where, do most of you know what 40 Days for Life is? 40 days of prayer and fasting. I've had Michael Clancy come up and speak to us, who took the picture of the baby grabbing the doctor's finger during the procedure. And I also have Monsignor Riley coming up next weekend to do training on sidewalk counseling. So it's been I took that terrible experience of having no say over what happened to my child, and I turned to God, And I said, God, here I am. And I've completely devoted my life to pro-life work. This is what I do. I go and speak. I help out at pregnancy centers. I do whatever I can for the movement. And that's my mission for God. And I wouldn't have to go any other way. It's been a true blessing. Now I'm going around and I'm speaking to groups like this and to different organizations and giving my testimony. So, do any of you have any questions?